Thank you very much, Edna, for your kind introduction. Designing for health and well-being. What does it actually mean, designing for health or well-being? By the way, did you know that worldwide, most people spend as much as 87% of their time indoors? Are people spending that time in a comfortable environment, or do they keep facing difficult challenges? Like always feeling too hot or too cold, suffering from frequent cold, flus, and fatigue, or constantly battling allergies. And on top of that, suddenly confronted with major maintenance work and ever-increasing AC that leads to high bills. The buildings we are living in, working, and playing have a direct impact on our well-being, health, and productivity. And as designers and builders, it's our responsibility to collaborate with customers and create spaces which focus on improving their quality of life and well-being. Developing healthy habitats is a process which requires different stakeholders and an interdisciplinary approach, considering a design that creates spaces which align with the customer's priorities, adopting a health and energy efficiency-centric design process, which has to take in account of movements, thermal comfort, acoustic, natural light, water, and air. So it's a quite complex design process that we need to follow and to work along with the customer. We have also to consider the synergies between design and construction. Innovative building systems are transforming with the right combination of technology, smart engineering, and innovation, the well-being into reality. And these new building solutions, many of them focus on higher thermal and acoustic comfort, as well as energy savings. As we can see on the picture, a site where we are going to compare a traditional construction system and a new building solution that focus on high insulated thermal envelopes, resulting in healthy living comfort, healthy environments, and considerable cooling energy savings. Talking about innovative building systems, the building industry is moving fast towards digitization and offsite manufacturing. Quality-driven building systems convert the well-being and energy efficiency-focused designs in healthy living environments and asset longevity. Last but not least, the energy-efficient designs contribute towards healthier environments, sustainability, and enhancing of community well-being. But most importantly, well-being-centered buildings shall improve customers' quality of life, providing them with a new generation of indoor health, comfort, and overall peace of mind. So, Mina, when discussing health, architecture is not the first thing that comes to mind, but its influence is inescapable. What constitutes health-focused architecture, and how can environmentally conscious designs influence lifestyle decisions and promote better mental and physical health for occupants?
Thank you for those interesting questions, Michael. It's true that when we think of people's health, we may not have immediately created a direct link to architecture before. But I believe, as you mentioned, COVID-19 pandemic is changing that notion and perspective now. It is certain that with this global pandemic, unfortunately, we have a much more placed, perhaps a renewed focus on the ways we interact with one another, but also with the built environment. And I would even say that it has brought this very much actually interlinked concepts of architecture and health to mainstream, where it isn't just the built environment professionals, scientists, researchers, or medical experts grasping how people's health and well-being is intrinsically linked to the spaces they inhabit and occupy. I think it's instead now it's in everyone's conscious and awareness, especially today where our lives have been confined to rather limited boundaries of buildings and the spaces that we live in or work. So simply put, I think the design and the creation of built environments, which is what architecture is about, definitely has a much more emphasized and perhaps an obvious focus on health and well-being today. And as I have mentioned before, this is especially the case now when we're expecting and needing our buildings to be the shelters from the harsh sort of outdoor or also contaminated outdoor world or outside world, while also offering environments that continue to nurture our physical and mental well-being, as well as creativity and productivity. And I think it's important to also factor in the equation of the need to support our social needs, how the built environments today need to respond to our social needs and promote interaction. And considering all of this, I think I would say that health-focused architecture is the one that actually exhibits qualities which consider and address both physical and also experiential, sort of the sensory and the qualitative impacts of the built environment on people. Because I also believe that our experience of a built environment is the result of an interplay of physical, physiological, psychological, and also social factors that define our interaction as humans with that built environment. And I think only when we look at all of these factors collectively, we can really truly determine the health and well-being criteria or performance of a physical built environment. And if I may also briefly link this to your second question, I think these factors through which specific parameters and targets tend to be defined around when we're designing and delivering and even constructing built environments, also very much underpin the overarching principles and outcomes, in other words, sort of the KPIs of environmentally conscious designs and buildings. I could describe these overarching principles for environmentally conscious designs and buildings as efficiency in terms of resource use and use reduction and management. Balance in terms of finding this harmony between the built environment, the natural environment, and the people. And also lastly, perhaps resilience, which is also inherently linked to adaptability to specific needs today, but also to changing needs in the future. So I think these all of these really form the basis of an architecture that places both the planetary and the people's health at the heart. And I also see this inherently being an architecture that sort of leverages environmental priorities of energy reduction, carbon savings, or natural ecosystems enhancement, just as examples, to promote health and well-being of the people. And also an architecture that draws from health and well-being focused outcomes of sort of clean air, access to daylight, thermal comfort, and social cohesion, to name a few, to define the design parameters as well as to drive the environmental performance of the building. So for me, I think environmentally conscious design is the one that naturally and inherently is a health-focused design, which eventually delivers an architecture that considers health holistically, both from the perspective of the people and the planet.
Yes, Mina, I totally agree with your points of view. So there is a lot that we have to consider regarding the designing parameters for well-being and whatever the well-being is inducing the benefits that we are getting from. So, Anne-Marie, to enhance the customer's well-being, the design of the places where we live, work, and play needs to look beyond single parameters such as air temperature and humidity. Looking at a holistic approach, what should be considered when designing with health and well-being in mind?
Yeah, it's a fabulous question, and for us at the International Well-Building Institute, we just have a really firm belief that the buildings, the organizations, and the communities are the most important and powerful tools we have to support health and well-being, even in normal times. And at the moment, you know, we are operating across 64 countries, with almost 700 million square feet of property. So you can really see that this new rating system or this framework is providing the guidance, you know, to really help both the physical and the social environment give people an opportunity to be the healthiest versions of themselves. And I know you mentioned in the very beginning that, you know, crazy percentage of time that we all spend indoors. You know, it was as high as 90% when we were all going to work. And now that percentage is as high as 97%. And if you think about the original premise, you know, going back hundreds of years ago, like, why didn't we have the medical profession sitting with architects and engineers and really trying to understand, if our bodies aren't fundamentally made to spend all this time indoors, what is it that we have to do to design buildings where the healthy option becomes the easy option, or we start to really understand how we can encourage healthy behavior. So when you look at groups like the Center for Disease Control or the World Health Organization, you know, the majority of our influences, everything that influences our health and well-being is based on both the physical and the social environments that we live, work, play, get educated in. And many of the research-backed strategies that we deploy in Well cut across building design, operations, programs, and policies. It helps folks understand, like, what is an actionable framework. So I really love the word that you asked, which is about holistic. And, you know, my history, it comes from sustainability and architecture, and now in healthy building design. And to me, that word is so powerful. You know, we need to move away from siloed solutions. We can't be thinking about HVAC or mechanical solutions without understanding the types of materials that we design with, because whatever chemicals are in the materials that we design with are now being floated through the mechanical system. So I really believe that we need to be looking more towards a systems approach in solving these problems. And Well is a holistic approach for wellness in buildings, because again, it requires the companies, the clients, the end users to integrate the architecture and the engineering strategies with improvements in operations and maintenance. And then it starts to bring in HR policies and protocols. So you really have distinct siloed parts of the business that are now working together. So you mentioned the basics of things like air quality, temperature, and humidity. So our Well strategy comprehensively addresses 10 concepts or lenses in which you can consider when you're thinking about health and wellness. So beyond things like air and comfort, which we just mentioned, we talk about water and hydration. The most important part of our body needs water. And how do we start to identify hydration as a part of a design solution? We talk about lighting and acoustic qualities. I mean, things that most folks in open plan offices were really struggling with before lockdown. It's just the ability to concentrate and focus. And then we are looking at some of the softer sides of health and well-being in the built environment, which don't necessarily always get the recognition that they need. So healthy eating, how do you swap out the candy and the cookies in an office environment for health items, you know, like fruits and vegetables? And two really important activities that we were really making a lot of headway in the office environment, and I think now in a COVID world, we are also really trying to help with people who are working from home, is how do we integrate physical activity, moving away from this sedentary lifestyle? And most important is cognitive health. How do we really address mental health in the spaces that we design? And really, with what Mina is saying, the architectural element right there about how we address daylight, lighting, artificial lighting that has good impact on our bodies, biophilia, working with natural materials. These are all the architectural elements that can really be utilized to strengthen this sort of holistic approach. I think what's great is that each of the WELL criteria really is completely focused on health, comfort, or knowledge around health and well-being. And I guess what's really important, and I think, you know, never has it been more important than today, is whatever you measure matters. So one of the real differentiators that we find within WELL is that every space that's trying to meet WELL certification is required to meet really strict performance metrics. So indoor air quality, water quality that you drink, the lighting levels that you need to operate with, and thermal comfort and acoustics are all being measured before a building gets operated. And it forms the backbone of health and wellness that constantly gets delivered to everyone in the space. So you don't need to opt in to be in a healthy building. You actually get all the benefits of just going to work there. The other word that I love to use when I think about this impact on health and well-being in the design world is transparency. So it's very important for a WELL building to meet its performance criteria, and then it's really important for those spaces to get recertified every 3 years. And that means that it ensures that the project and the space is operating at these high levels of performance over time. So it creates a culture of accountability, which I think today, like we're seeing with the folks who are keen to come back into their buildings, we need to know how these spaces are operating, and we need to know exactly who's accountable. So I think, you know, this idea of transparency and accountability is also really important. I think we're very focused on being grounded in research and evidence, which is really a phenomenon that we find is one of the backbones of the program. So really understanding that even though we are a standard that's very young, it was released in 2014, in as little as 6 years, we see a global uptake of this standard, and we are looking at really international equivalencies of wherever the standard is relevant. So we feel really excited about where this is going.
Thank you very much, Anne-Marie, for your fascinating insights. And definitely we have to provide an architecture that delivers the best opportunity to live in, since we are spending that much time inside, unfortunately. Mina, when designing with the synergies of well-being and energy efficiency in mind, how can energy efficiency-centered design positively impact our holistic well-being? And are net zero energy buildings the right approach for a health-focused architecture?
Thank you for those questions, Michael. I think let me start by saying that it is widely recognized, and hopefully we will all agree, that the built environment plays a huge role when we talk about building a healthy and sustainable world today, but also in the future. And in this context, I think planetary health, which is broadly speaking, is heavily dependent on minimizing resource depletion and integrating efficiency in general. And people's health and well-being are inextricably linked. So here there is no choice being made between which one to prioritize. And I see this as the overall definition of this holistic well-being you're referring to in your question. And if I may also elaborate on this a little bit more, I believe this is the case because climate change, which is the biggest threat to planetary health, also poses the greatest risk to human race. Natural disasters that continue to risk lives and livelihoods all around the world, droughts that impact the growth of natural food resources, hence the availability of our nourishment supplies, and heat waves that contribute to disease emergence are some of the immediate references I can think of, which are testament to this reality. So as an architect, I see health and well-being integral to a broader systems change approach where health, energy efficiency, and resilience are harmonized and equally prioritized in the design, delivery, and construction of the built environment. I think considering this, the net zero energy criteria or performance target, as you referenced, can definitely be seen as complementary when delivering health-focused architecture, but only if the overall design of a building or that built environment would really holistically consider and then also in balance address the implications of energy efficiency focused decisions on health outcomes. And on the other side of the coin, the health-driven choices that are made throughout the design and delivery of a built environment also needs to support the overall environmental performance of that same built environment. Because we cannot simply design to one criterion or outcome and one only. As much as it is within our power as key stakeholders and decision makers in the creation of the built environment, we must consider all aspects and what sometimes may seem competing priorities all in tandem. I think this is essential to avoid any unintended consequences. And if I may give a brief example of one of our own projects at SOM to further iterate my point, and also to make this more perhaps tangible to how this whole concept can be unraveled within the context of a built environment. I would like to briefly mention the first net zero energy school in New York City called the Kathleen Grimm School for Leadership and Sustainability, which we have designed a couple of years ago, and it was constructed in 2015. And designed to at least half the energy use of the building when compared to typical schools in the state, and also to harvest as much energy on site as it uses. This building in reference presents a unique opportunity, a precedent actually, of how energy efficient focused design is inherently also positively impacting occupant health and well-being in that building. So the building maximizes passive design strategies from daylighting to natural ventilation and others, as well as carefully leverages the synergies that can be found between the passive strategies and active building systems, not only to optimize the asset's performance, but also to enhance user experience, while also safeguarding the occupant's long-term physical health and mental well-being. To be more specific, if I can give an example to a strategy, because the building is designed to allow for ample daylight indoors throughout the day, there is very little need of artificial lighting throughout the school, which is significantly minimizing the energy demand of this building. And it's a fundamental part of the overall net zero energy roadmap of this project. And this abundant daylight in this example is also a key enhancer of particularly the young students' general moods, promoting their active participation and interaction in the classroom as well as throughout the school. And the constant availability of daylight in this example also helps augment students' cognitive function, something that Anne-Marie referenced earlier, increasing the students' ability to learn. So there are also many sort of research and proven physical health benefits that access to daylight and sunlight will provide for people, which I wouldn't want to go into too much detail now. But the specific aspect of this Kathleen Grimm School that I'm referencing here is only a very small part of the bigger picture of how an energy efficiency centered design naturally and inherently delivers on the health and well-being focused outcomes of that particular building, and also cater to the needs of the end users of that particular building. And there are many other aspects of this building and many other similar buildings all around the world we can reference to demonstrate this intrinsic link and sort of the mutual benefits that we can draw out between energy efficiency and health when we talk about design and delivery of the built environments. And of course, I think to conclude, as mentioned before, only if we as designers, and I hold myself accountable in that, as an architect, if we prioritize planetary and people's health in tandem and design to cater to both the needs, rather than isolating and trying to address one where we may be creating an unintended consequence for the other. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mina, for these very insightful thoughts. It's very fascinating to see how complex it is also to design net zero energy buildings. And definitely we have to consider or to think about really integrated designs where we have great teamwork between designers, engineers, and also the construction companies from the very beginning to optimize the outcome of energy efficiency and well-being. Anne-Marie, The real estate market is right now in a phase of transition and change. Are well-being centric architectures and healthy living environments a new opportunity for developers to come up with a unique offering, allowing them to stand out from their competition?
Well, I definitely think that, excuse me, even in a pre-COVID environment, well-being centric architecture and healthy living was definitely on the table for discussion. And we really found that the innovative developers and owners of either new or even existing buildings realized that the market has started shifting. And they were catering to end users who really understood that the working environment needs to provide a healthy, positive environment to be creative and collaborative. You know, it's really interesting what Mina said is trying to get away from productivity as an output and being able to say that children have higher cognitive scores, or we're seeing higher rates of creativity or collaboration. Those are the types of KPIs we should be looking for. So there's definitely some really innovative companies that have realized that if they're trying to hire and retain the best talent in the industry, that workplace becomes an area that they should improve. And I'm saying that because of our rigor and the comprehensive sort of performance verification, we felt that we're best suited for leadership organizations who are really committed to their people and who really stress that their values include industry partnership and engagement. So I've definitely seen that the WELL certification seal or the certification award is becoming a globally recognized mark, which indicates excellence in the company that's really trying to drive forward health and wellness strategies within their business. And I really have seen that industry leaders know that it's important to track these really important metrics because they do inform where they want to invest and even strategic decisions about their company. What's great about the end result of the WELL certification is that it helps organizations capture feedback, performance data, employee experience feedback, so you can assess your progress as you've moved into this healthy building. And then you can start to make ongoing decisions about how you optimize your space and how you really understand those metrics of productivity, creativity, and collaboration. So I really believe that workplace design and operation is intrinsically connected to a business's bottom line. And early WELL projects that have already been in their space for over a year are starting to really compel that discussion. So we've had post-occupancy reports from WELL certified spaces that are now starting to share these outcomes. So for example, we have CBRE's headquarters in Madrid have reported that 80% of their employees believe that their new space enables them to be more productive. And we've worked really closely with the American Society for Interior Designers, who completed their new WELL certified office headquarters in New York and realized that it was designed with the highest level of sustainability, the highest level of health and well-being. They had a huge focus on indoor air quality, and automatically they could see their absentee rates decline by 19%. Now that's a real measurable outcome. And if you look at 19% of someone's salary, and that could be multiple people over the span of a year, you're talking about real incredibly and impressive numbers. So, and I think we're now in a position where this new workplace is going to be really looked at through a different lens. So going forward, coming from this COVID-19 crisis, I think that there'll be much more focus and attention on our buildings and the need for health and equity to be at the center of design, construction, and operations. And, you know, we need to be able to allow these buildings to help us to make the healthy choice easier. So off the bat, we're going to see a greater focus on ventilation, higher percentages of fresh air, better quality of filtration, and obviously the importance of hand washing support. I think we are going to see incredible organizational policies and protocols that can help mitigate the spread of diseases as well as influencing mental health during times like this. I think human resources in general will start providing mental health support, trying to keep people feeling connected. And I think we're going to see that, you know, the organizations that identify things like workplace stress and management are going to be the higher valued workplaces. And for folks who have to remote work, we're going to know that these staff are going to be taken care of. They're going to have accountability, flexible work policies. And I think the industry will definitely be realizing that there's a huge importance in being able to value this opportunity in this transition, that these new buildings will stand out from their competition. There's absolutely no doubt about it.
Thank you very much, Mina. This was really great to hear. So, Anne-Marie, health is priceless, and I think we all agree it's also a precious good for everyone. And to provide well-being centered buildings, higher initial capital investments are inescapable. Are healthy properties the right opportunity for investors and organizations? And which factors can positively influence the return of investment in the short term and the long term?
Thank you, Michael. It's a great question, and I think we are going to start to see a lot of detail and discussion around investment in healthy buildings. Because of this COVID-19 pandemic, and we know that there's been an associated impact economically, I think that the links between population health and the economy has never been so clear. Once considered like the invisible H in ESG, which is environmental, social, and governance reporting, I think health now is going to be a pivotal piece that underpins all of ESG. And I think it'll play a critical role in how companies and shareholders assess where to invest in the years to come. And from where we stand, the future of investing needs to be investing for health. So I do believe that the ESG conversation is moving mainstream, and I think we're believing and seeing that WELL is responsible for and helping to create and define the S in ESG, which is social. We've seen that ESG investing has seen a huge rise in popularity. The COVID pandemic has further crystallized the way that business and health are staying connected. And I think that investing with a focus on health and well-being isn't just about positivity for the workers and individuals. It always benefits the business's bottom line. Companies that have historically prioritized health in past financial crises saw lower employment burnout, increased productivity, higher job satisfaction, and that allowed them to get through a very typically economic challenging time. So owners and developers are really reporting that certified buildings offer a way to appeal to tenants and secure prospective projects as the trend towards healthier buildings grows. They also believe that certified buildings show sustainability conscious investors and tenants that they're committed to learning about this process so they can develop future healthy buildings more efficiently. Many believe that healthy buildings eventually will lead to market differentiation and return, which would obviously include better rents, better tenant retention, and holding on to tenants for a longer period of time. So we are in the firm belief that ESG is going to be a very strong movement going forward, and that health will play and help develop the S in ESG so that we can really start to see the environmental and health aspects really working close together towards driving real estate improvements in the future.
Thank you very much, Anne-Marie. This is, again, it was really insightful, and I think you highlighted the real opportunity for investors and developers to go forward for the well-being solutions that the market can offer in future. Jennie, do these design principles limit the expressions of the architectural language, or can they lead to a new interpretation of design?
That's a really interesting question. I think, as architects, we always love to have, we actually like limitations and we like rules and regulations, because you end up making something that, is much more ingenious, I think, than having a complete free rein. I think that in terms of healthy habitats and health and wellness, that sort of, it was sustainability that was just became the new normal, and now it's health and wellness is the sort of the next level up from sustainability. And I think it's something that it is intrinsic in a design, and it's not something that actually has to be seen. So in terms of architectural expression, I don't think that these regulations either limit or really change the architectural expression or that sort of aesthetic look and feel. I think that it's more about, when you're talking about these regulations, they're things like construction and that idea behind health and wellness, the quality of light and water and biophilia. There are things that it's more like it becomes an atmosphere and a joy and a delight to be inside these buildings, and so it doesn't really change the aesthetic look or the shape, or the space, because we as human beings, we're still the same. What we're trying to do is live in better quality environments. So for me, it doesn't really limit, and I don't feel that it really changes the architectural expression. I think, and maybe that's just from me coming from Dubai, I'm giving a more of a Dubai sort of perspective on this, and maybe more of a low technology perspective, as that's sort of more some of our work. We're very lucky here that we have an abundance of sunshine, so you can start to create just sort of small openings. You can still have a beautiful quality of light during the day, and looking back at the past and the vernacular architecture in terms of your site orientation, channeling those breezes through your buildings, so and courtyards as well. I think that really what we're trying to do is, it's more an intellectual investment, these regulations, rather than an aesthetic look and feel. So a lot of people that I know that are not necessarily in the design field, they will walk into a building and say, yeah, I feel good in here, but they don't necessarily know why. And that actually means that you did your job really well. It's when you go inside a building and you sort of think, oh, I just want to leave now, I want to get out of here, then you know that you as an architect haven't done a good job. And actually, I was in a meeting the other day, and the air conditioning system was just so noisy, and I came out of the meeting with a headache. And I knew I'd be on this panel, and I was actually thinking, this is exactly health and wellness. This is exactly what it's about. It's about those unseen factors, those things that the architect, that's what you pay the architect to do, is to create a beautiful building that actually, if you don't have any complaints, that means that you're doing your job really well. And I think it's also about monitoring buildings. So more than making something, that you see, it's about how do you monitor what it is that you've actually done. Yes, you have the right U values, that you have the right kind of shading, you're using really good high quality materials, low VOC and everything else that we sort of know about, but then it comes into monitoring that building, you know, and seeing if the light quality is right, if the water is you know, clean, and then you know, and then you can actually use that information to see how well your building is actually functioning and how well the inhabitants are functioning inside the space, you know. And there's so much work that's been done on that. Yeah, I think that's really from my side. It doesn't limit your expression, and really, you know, what you're doing is actually acting as a conduit to create something that's, you know, beautiful and serene and you know, a delight to inhabit.
I mean, you brought it to the point. We are talking here about the unseen factors. We are talking about feelings. How do you feel inside a building? And the feelings are, let's say, there are different factors that will influence these feelings. We are talking about the design. We are talking about, as you said, the materials. We are talking about many factors which will influence these feelings. And talking about feelings or how someone feels, we have also to consider how building in controlled and protected environments can promote workers' health, which should be definitely a logical implication of a health-focused architecture. So, Jennie, standardized and off-site manufactured building systems, can they be customizable and flexible to reflect the architectural language that we spoke? We bespoke with the previous question. So, can off-site manufacturing be an opportunity to transmute well-being-centric architecture?
Yes, I think if we rewind that question a little bit, you know, something that I think that architects can influence is when you're looking at health and well-being and the life cycle of the building. You know, we normally say that the life of the building starts after handover, you know, and that's something that you have to think about. You have to imagine this building in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time. That's how you will add value to your design. But back from that is this stage of construction, and thinking about health and well-being in terms of construction is something that I think that we should really highlight. And one side is looking at off-site manufacture, which I'll talk about in a moment. But first of all, I think what really makes a difference, or what really helps, is the standards of wellness and health in terms of workers, you know, and particularly in this region, it's something to really think about. You know, I think a lot of contractors now, a lot of construction companies are really thinking about that, and knowing that when we're looking to tender a project, we actually want to know about that, and how workers are being treated. So their health, their morale, you know, their time off, their rest areas, you know, when they get breaks. And just thinking in terms of off-site manufacture, I was actually at a joinery factory, a really big joinery factory, a couple of weeks ago, and they were very proud to show me around their factory, and it was beautifully clean, very well kept. Everybody had good protection and masks. But one of the things that really stood out to me was the fact that they wash all the workers' uniforms. So when they come to work in the morning, they come in their ordinary clothes, and then they get changed into a nice, fresh, clean uniform. They can have a shower as well. And then they start their day, they do their work, and then they go get changed again at the end of the day. They take their clothes off and they go into the laundry. And so instead of having people that have to spend their day off, because here in the Middle East, it's traditionally a 6-day week. So that Friday, that one day, they spend half the day washing their uniforms. And so just one thing, it doesn't cost, the owner and the director very much money at all, makes a huge difference to the people that work in the factory. And actually, all the people that worked in this factory have been there right since the beginning and have all stayed in the same company. And I think small things like that make such a big difference. So, one side is that when we start thinking now and looking at some of our projects and thinking about who we're going to tender to, is we actually we think about these things as well. And then in terms of offsite manufacturing, yes, I think that first of all, I think the leaders of this country are so incredible. They're always trying to promote new things. They're trying to be at the forefront of technology, at the forefront of building, whether it's offsite manufacture or 3D printing. The rulers are really, really, really thinking ahead, and it's up to us as a construction industry and designers to just get on board with this and do much more than we're actually doing. So in terms of offsite manufacture, when it comes to health and well-being, there's so many benefits to that. I mean, there's going from low VOC and having a controlled environment, getting a much better quality, of product. But also, if you think about the actual site, you think about the amount of time that you're spending on the site. Instead of building everything on the site, if you can do as much offsite manufacture as possible, then you've got less energy on site, less waste, less control over your staff and who's building it. They're out in the sun all day. And also think about the neighbours. I mean, that's something, particularly with health and well-being, that if you're bringing products directly to site, construction directly to site, then you're not bothering them so much also. So I think that there are huge benefits, so many things, safer working conditions and noise and air pollution, and the sustainability benefits as well.
I think it's also about, at the end, also about the quality of the construction, and the quality will then also heavily influence these unseen factors where we spoke about it before. So, and building in an safe and healthier environment means also increasing the quality of the final product, definitely. So thank you very much, Jennie, for your very fascinating thoughts. As architects and builders, we strongly believe in the restorative powers of the places where we live, work, and play. We have the opportunity and the responsibility to not simply design and create spaces, but to develop healthy habitats for people to thrive in. The accomplishment of creating healthy living environments is the outcome of a great teamwork between designers, engineers, and construction companies. And together they can significantly increase the quality and energy efficiency of built environments, which leads to healthier and more livable spaces. The last years have already induced and increased relevant disruptions. Governments across the world have agendas which target sustainability and quality of life. And the building industry is moving fast towards digitization and innovation of building systems, which will enhance the transition to well-being-driven buildings. Healthy living environments are therefore a driver of change and transformation, and well-being focused developments are becoming more appealing and marketable, resulting in new and resilient opportunities for developers, investors, and organizations. So thank you very much for your kind attention, and thank you very much to Mina, Anne-Marie, and Jennie for attending this panel discussion. After concluding our discussions, the stage is now open for questions.
And thank you so much to our dear panel. I'm feeling healthier already. I'm just looking around my environment here and making sure that I have air and space and light. So thank you so much. That was very encouraging, inspiring, and a lot of messages out there to people to have a look. So Anne-Marie, Mina, Jennie, thank you so much. And Michael, thank you so much also for moderating that. And now I'm glad you've all stayed with us here, and we've got a bit of a Q&A, and we have some questions coming in from our audience. And please, to our dear audience, add a few more questions. We've got them for 10 minutes. So let me see, Michael, actually, I would like to start with you if I can. And when we look at 2020, without a doubt, you know, lots of challenges there, lots of disruptions. And again, the building industry definitely reacting quickly, and we're looking at digitalization. But are they moving fast enough? Indeed, and as an industry, you know, are we moving fast enough? Michael.
Definitely, there are some players there, they are moving very fast. So this is also now the time to move fast, because everyone wants to be ahead of the next challenges that we will have tomorrow. And we have also to look what has been done until today in terms of digitalization and in terms of offsite manufacturing. And we have also to optimize it. So to find the right way to implement it and to bring it down to a transformation of well-being, to an efficient transformation of well-being in construction and real estate.
Now, Anne-Marie, you had said some people are doing this already. I mean, this was something that was going on, but you also talked about transparency and accountability, you know, in terms of the health of a building. Who's responsible?
It's such a great question, Etna, and I think when we look at transparency now in a post-COVID world, the occupants of buildings are going to really feel safe and secure in buildings that they know are managing their property. So we're looking at landlords, employees, developers. We're looking at the folks who manage these buildings to be able to say, do what you're doing, but give us the transparency and the information. So you're going to see a rise of continuous air quality monitoring. The hallmark of WELL certification is performance verification, which means that we actually show up on site and we measure the air quality, the water quality, acoustics, and lighting levels. And these are the key metrics of a healthy building. We can no longer just rely on the assumption that things were designed right and built right. The performance verification and the continuous air quality monitoring gives those end users and the people who are coming back into these buildings that level of security and assurance that what folks are, you know, telling us that they're doing, they're actually delivering.
Mina, I'm just thinking, you know, when we look at, you know, healthy buildings, I mean, are there enough healthy buildings in the world? And I mean, can we retrofit? Or do we just have to look to, you know, the new builds that are going to be out there? And obviously, you know, buildings coming from, you know, Skidmore, Owens and MERRILL, they're going to be magnificent, of course. But, you know, what can we expect from the new builds? And how can we incorporate this, I suppose, holistic approach to all buildings?
Thank you for that question, Etienne. I think it's really important I'm actually very thankful that you're bringing up the emphasis on the existing buildings, because I think we, in the industry over the years, especially as the health parameters and health criteria tends to get more and more stringent, we tend to just say that older buildings or existing buildings are not up to standards, and therefore we need to demolish and start new. But I actually completely disagree with that. There is a lot of opportunities that we need to embrace with looking back and understanding how our existing buildings can be brought up to the standards. And that definitely requires, as you mentioned, a holistic view and also effective collaboration and monitoring, as Anne-Marie was briefly mentioning, monitoring the building performance and understanding what the priorities are and how, as a wider stakeholder team along the value chain of that particular project, we can work collectively to bring that building up to standards of today. But there's definitely hope. So I would definitely say that there's a guarantee that existing buildings could meet the standards of today as well.
Yes, indeed. But when we look at buildings, and obviously like some of the big corporates, they've had more money in the past, they'll have more money again. They look at design and they get some wonderful buildings in place. Jennie, help me here. Not everybody is a big corporate building, and there's the small and medium-sized players. They deserve a healthy place to work too. How can we actually help incorporate something like that into, their future? Because they want to grow and they want to hire people. So they want to make sure they're in the right environment.
Absolutely agree. I think, I mean, at the moment, actually, post-COVID, we're all reassessing our priorities, and even some of the larger corporations don't have the capacity right now. But I think that it is about priorities, and it is about making this a priority as much as sustainability was the sort of new watchword. Health and wellness is that new watchword, and it has to be something that is incorporated into the design, but also it's, and what I love about the Big Five, some of the talks that I've done before are very closed in the design community, whereas this is much more open, across all the construction sectors. Is that some of our projects, even though we're a small company, we talk to facilities managers and we bring them on, and we bring end users on right at the very beginning of the design inception. And this way we can actually infuse health and well-being and those aspects right from the very start. So we're designing with the operations in mind. So we might not be able to, bring on as many consultants as we would like, but there's going to be people that are, further down the chain. And if we bring them right at the very beginning, then we can at least add that into the aspects of the design from the start.
I think that's so important. And again, for all size companies, without a doubt. Michael, when we look at it, I mean, the virus wasn't just a health crisis. In many ways, it's been a bit of a wake-up call to the industry, in terms of how we work, where we work. Do you think it's time to maybe rethink the traditional methods of design and architecture?
I think yes, or it's not, I think yes, definitely it's yes, because we have to move on. We have to optimize our way of constructing buildings, and our way also of designing buildings. Means there is a big opportunity in the standardization of construction. So it's not that standardization and prefabrication mean this is a predetermined product. It's prefabricated but not predetermined. So we have all opportunities to bring on the way different architectural languages to implement different solutions. So for me, standardization is always something about increasing the efficiency of the workflow process and increasing also the opportunity of quality management, which is, I think, also a very important part of guaranteeing the well-being in buildings. So well-being is not only by designing, but especially through the construction itself, because the construction, the building itself is then the one we are living in. We are dealing with it on a daily basis. And from that point of view, there is a big opportunity about standardization and off-site optimize the costs, to optimize also the speed of construction, and to optimize the quality. So at the end, we talk about better buildings, faster and more cost efficient.
Absolutely, and it's so important. We've only got a few minutes left. Anne-Marie, quickly, when we look return on investment, I mean, is it clear in a healthy building? You talked briefly about it, but very quickly, you know, just maybe reinforce what you just said.
Absolutely. I mean, the buzzword for the future is going to be invest in health. I think you can change any parameter inside a building and see a benefit in terms of that business case. Increased lighting, natural daylight, increased ventilation. If you keep an eye on those small inherent changes that you can provide, you will see the benefit in terms of creativity, collaboration, enhanced productivity, reduced sick time. Just have your CFO start adding up the impact of those numbers and you'll really see a change.
Mina, again, if I was to, you know, get a word or two from you, and when we look at making a building healthy, people think it's all about big additional costs. What would you say?
I think I would just say any cost, I think it's important to look at cost not as upfront, but as lifelong. So when we look at the lifelong cost, the upfront cost that we may be dedicating to buildings today to make them healthier or more sustainable can actually be paid off over the long life of the building. So it's important to look at the life of the building and not just on the day of construction completion.
Jennie, I'm going to give you the closing word on this as we look at, you know, many buildings here and look at what people really want. Are you beginning to see that people actually, clients come and they really want a brighter building, a healthier building as such?
Yes, definitely. I mean, being here in Dubai, you know, there's a lot of buildings that, as we've been talking about, that need refurbishing now. And people are looking more at longevity. They are looking at their priorities. And what is a measurement of success? It's not only financial. So I think this is definitely something that is moving forward into the future.
Michael, if there was to be one or two words you'd throw out there in terms of what do we need to be looking at as we hit the future?
I think definitely, like also Jennie told us now.
Two words, Michael, that's all I want from you.
No, I just want to recapitalize on the importance of the well-being and also to guarantee this through the construction itself. So companies should definitely move on this. And it's a big opportunity for companies, especially in these days where we have a lot of challenges and a lot of companies are worried. So this is a new opportunity for the market, and this is also a new opportunity for companies to grow again.
Okay, and I'm going to have to leave it there from you. Listen, thank you so much from all of you. Thank you so much. I just think the energy, particularly in this panel too, is just great, and there's so much to be done. But I think you've opened up just a fabulous area where people, this is not just about a building, it's about the people in the building, and I think it's really added some tremendous value. Thank you all so much for being with us. Thank you, Michael, Anne-Marie, Mina, and Jennie. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.